The council met in closed session previously, and we now adjourn the closed session. We have nothing to report out, and we will reconvene to open session, and we have a report out of that closed session. And now we are, the closed session is now adjourned. And now we begin the regular meeting of the Corte Madera Town Council. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Councilmember Beckman.
Here.
Councilmember Ravazio is absent from this meeting. Vice Mayor Casissa.
Here.
Mayor Thomas.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of the Allegiance. I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Right. We begin with open time for public comment. Each member of the council or of the town may have 3 minutes to speak. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. You can speak about anything that is not on tonight's agenda. And if you have something to say, please make your way to the podium. And I see we have someone in the house already.
Hurry, so I decided to jump on it right away. Good evening, Council. Mayor Thomas, members of the council. In July of last year, this council on a 3-2 vote made a policy decision that affects volunteers that serve on the town's boards, commissions, and committees. And sort of briefly summarized, as I understand it, that policy was articulated as when a member of the public, citizen here in Corte Madera, has served for 10 years, a decade, 12 years, a considerable amount of time, and has gained experience and institutional knowledge, the decision would be made to terminate that individual in favor of new individuals who do not have the experience. And Councilmember Thomas, who was not the mayor at the time, articulated her lobbying logic. She said, quote, "I've been in organizations where all the institutional knowledge rests in one person, and when that person leaves, everyone is left saying, what do we do? What do we do?" End of quote. And it just occurs to me that that anecdote is accurate. It really has no relevance to a town council, town committee, town advisory board, town commission member. And these are made up of 5 to 7 citizens. So by its nature, every board, commission, and committee is going to have people with varying experience and various levels of institutional knowledge. And Councilmember Thomas made it clear that she thought that this policy should apply to all of the boards, commissions, and committees, not just the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Now, why that's important to me is that I know that Bob Ravazio, Cheryl Longanati, their terms are coming to a conclusion. I know people like Peter Chase. He'll be up for reappointment, assuming that he chooses to run. And if this policy is continued to be applied in a non-discriminatory manner, which is to say, you treat like people in a like manner, town council would have to say no to these citizens who have served so long and have so much information and passion. So I think that's counterproductive to what's good for the town. So I would urge town manager, town attorney, town council sort of put their heads together and sort of ask themselves, does this really benefit the town to terminate someone who has a lot of institutional knowledge and passion about serving? Thank you very much. I think my time is up.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else in the public who would like to speak? Anyone online?
No hands raised from the online attendees and no emailed public comment for open time has been received.
All right, then. We have no presentations. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to group together items that are routine and have previously been discussed and do not require further discussion. They will be approved in a single motion. Any member of the public may comment on the consent calendar, and town council, town staff, or the public may request removal of an item for discussion as allowed in the rules. Do we have any public comment? I'm sorry, do we have any person on the council who'd like to remove anything from the consent calendar or comment on anything? Okay, I see none. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar? None online?
None online and none via email, and no request to pull any items from the public.
All right, then. So may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Oh,
I'd like to make a motion to approve items 4A and 4B, please.
I'll second.
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Right. Our first public hearing is 5A, consideration and possible adoption of Resolution 13, 2026, approving the base rate and change application of Mill Valley Refuse Services to enable a fair rate of return as required under the existing franchise agreement by increasing by 2.2% the current maximum rates that may be charged for delivery of solid waste collection and dual stream recycling services with the rates and terms and conditions effective July 1st, 2026. And presenting, we have Assistant Town Manager Rebecca Vaughn.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is the annual public hearing on the Mill Valley Refuse Service rate application for fiscal year 2026-27. Next slide, please. Thank you. Tonight, the council is being asked to conduct the public hearing on the proposed MVRS rate adjustment and consider adoption of resolution number 13, 2026, which would approve a 2.2% increase in the maximum rates that may be charged, and the rates would be effective July 1st, 2026. Next slide, please. To briefly provide some background, the town has contracted with Mill Valley Refuse Services since 1965. The current franchise agreement remains in effect through December 31st, 2026. And based on council direction, staff is currently working on a new franchise agreement for council consideration later this fall. Under the current agreement, Mill Valley Refuse Service provides residential, commercial, and apartment collection services along with debris box service, street sweeping, and certain event-related services. Next slide, please. MVRS submitted this year's rate application on March 27th, 2026. The request is for a 2.2% increase, which is aligned with the Consumer Price Index. As described in the application materials, the cited cost drivers include employee compensation, pension obligations, healthcare and benefits, fuel cost volatility, and continued investment in service technology and fleet operations. Because the requested increase does not exceed CPI this year, a full rate review was not triggered under the franchise agreement. Next slide, please. In terms of customer impact, the proposed increase would amount to approximately $1.15 per month extra for a 32-gallon residential service and approximately an increase of 97 cents per month for a 20-gallon can service. The accompanying rate sheets are updated to reflect the proposed increase, which will become effective July 1st, and the terms and conditions remain unchanged from the prior year. So the main change before council tonight is the annual rate adjustment itself. Next slide, please. One additional point of context from the application is that MVRS identified an estimated system-wide shortfall of approximately 3.46% across all jurisdictions, which is about $867,000. Even so, Mill Valley Refuse is only requesting a 2.2% CPI-based increase for the year and has expressed that this is adequate to maintain operations. Next slide, please. Just a summary of the public notification and outreach carried out. The notice of the hearing was provided through the town's usual outreach channels, including the newsletter, the website, Facebook, and Nextdoor. The town clerk also emailed a notice to all MVRS subscribers on April 9th. Legal notices were published in the Marin Independent Journal on April 9th and April 16th, and public comment received prior to the agenda publication was included with the agenda materials. Next slide, please. Staff's recommendation is that council conduct the public hearing, receive any public comment, and if acceptable, adopt resolution number 13, 2026, approving the 2.2% rate increase and updated 2026-27 rates and terms and conditions effective July 1st, 2026. And we have Mill Valley Refuse Services CEO Gene Dellazoppa with us this evening. He's available to answer any questions from the council or the public. And this concludes staff's presentation, and I can invite Gene to the podium to introduce himself and also help answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Hello, esteemed council. My name is Gene Dellazoppa. I'm the CEO of Mill Valley Refuse Service. Purpose of me being here today is we're requesting a CPI-based adjustment of 2.2% for July 1st of 2026. With the CPI-based adjustment, I thought it would be important to kind of look back at the 5-year average to get a sense how we're trending. So the past 5 years, we've requested on average 3.5%. So for this 2.2% adjustment, that's falling below what the average has been the last 5 years. Now, in regards to this increase and what it's going to be, why it's needed, and what we're going to utilize it for, we are in the final year of our collective bargaining agreement with our union employees, and we're anticipating increased costs with health and welfare premiums. In addition, diesel fuel prices have been pretty volatile just to start off the year. I'm hoping things will stabilize, but we have a buffer put in place there. With disposal costs, specifically garbage and compost, we're expecting a CPI-based adjustment. We are expecting a decrease with dual stream recycling, which is great. We are entering, though, the final year of our disposal contract with Waste Management. So in 2027, we are anticipating some increases in costs there. In addition, we're also entering in a new collective bargaining agreement with our employees. So we should be expecting increases there. In terms of operational update, this year we're celebrating 120 years of being in service. And we're going to be doing something special for employees that have dedicated themselves to a lot of public service and being in the communities. 120 years is a long time. There's definitely been some twists and turns, but I'm happy that the company has shown the resilience to keep moving forward. Part of other aspects of the business in terms of operational update, we have integrated field tablets within the trucks. These tablets we're basically digitizing pre and post trip. And then also it's going to give us a lot of flexibility to move potentially to a new ERP and also improve routing, improving communications. And we're also looking at multi-year capital reinvestment with fleets, so new trucks coming in. And we also upgraded some of our camera systems just to expand upon safety and backing up. So that's the update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to council for any questions. Starting down here, starting with Councilman Andrews.
Yes, the $867,800 deficit or projected deficit,
Yes.
uh, is the reason why you didn't ask for more revenue the fact that if you just went with a CPI, you didn't trigger all sorts of accounting steps?
When we request a full base rate change, it does require R3 to come in and do, they're going to review the rate application. Part of our core strategy is we have to be sensitive to inflation and the costs that we are passing on to our customers. Part of the benefits of doing a CPI-based adjustment is it forces us to look at more operational efficiencies and going through the projections of where the company is from a financial standpoint. It's sufficient for us to continue operations and keep providing service.
Now, am I correct in thinking that the negotiations that will occur in the second half of this year might involve that full accounting analysis?
Are you speaking about in regards to the contract negotiations between
I'm thinking, isn't there, maybe I misread it, but I thought that contract we currently have with them expires in December.
correct? Yes.
So we have to get a replacement in
Correct.
place. So
Yes.
Sorry, so is Councilmember Andrews, the question is that same process going to be included in the future years as negotiated through this next contract?
I'm just saying that if we're doing a new contract,
Mhm.
I'm trying to find out, will there be the full, cost accounting analysis that we're trying to avoid by just going with CPI?
Oh, like we retroactively or for future
Just say
periods?
next year,
Yeah, for next year.
we've been losing money for 20 years, so,
Yeah.
or whatever.
In regards for future periods, it's going to be fully contingent on how our contracts go with our collective bargaining agreement, how revenue projections look like. In addition, our disposal contract. There's a lot of factors that will drive that, fuel being one of them too, diesel especially. There's also legislative impacts in regards to fleets, zero emission vehicles. And in regards to, the contract, I can speak that, I've worked, closely with Lorena and Adam in terms of conceptualizing the core agreement that is in place. So we are trying to, obviously there's going to be a process with the base rate change application. In addition, within that process, it will have, detailed steps of how that process works, as well as how CPI-based adjustments will be settled.
And if I may add, in the term sheets that were approved by council and agreed to by Mill Valley Refuse Service, the current methodology of using CPI is going to be retained, and we won't be doing a detailed rate review for the first 2 years.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Casissa.
Lorena may have answered this question for me, but I'll ask you anyway. Given all the stuff you said about collective bargaining, diesel fuel, can we expect rate increases next year, or is that contract negate some of that?
We haven't started negotiations yet with the collective bargaining agreement. A lot of it's going to hinge on, it's really going to boil down to what type of wage growth they're going to be looking at. I do think, given the impact of it, we will be letting our cities know with what that looks like once it's finalized. And having a collective bargaining agreement, I will say this, it does help with projecting out future costs, and it also addresses us with filling positions. We do have a couple senior employees that will be for retirement, and it's important to kind of make sure that those resources get reallocated. Happy to follow up more with you though, and let you know how that goes.
Okay, thanks. It just sounds like in general, your costs are going up.
Yeah, we are anticipating, if I had to put a number on it, 3 to 5, 3 being more on the lower end. A lot of it is, once again, it's really contingent on market conditions based on garbage drivers through the Teamsters. We do have a great relationship with them. And I do think that good faith will matter when we are negotiating with them directly.
Thanks. And I like you guys and I trust you guys, but Rebecca, do we validate any of the data that they provide us on the application? Or do we just take it at face value?
That's a very good question. I reviewed the data. I don't know that I could validate it again in the way that R3 would evaluate that. I don't have the spreadsheets, but I reviewed it for consistency and clarity and against the last few years of rate applications.
Okay. I guess
And
you
it,
have-
it tracked for me. But again, R3 would do a more in-depth
Well,
review.
and I think that's right. And typically if it's not CPI adjusted and it's more the application for a higher rate increase, then we're going to go into the deep dive. The CPI that's allowed for in the option, it sort of defaults to just checking the number of the Bayer, the correct data for CPI, that you're using that number correctly.
Right.
Okay. So it sounds like from our standpoint, it looks reasonable. Okay. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Fred.
Councilman Beckman, did you have a question?
I-
Okay, thank you. Only question I have is, I seem to recall somewhere that there is sort of a governing body that, I don't know, for lack of just a quick way of saying that, sort of caps the increases and caps the rates that can be charged for garbage disposal. Am I imagining that, or am I?
I can, I do know that the rate setting process has changed with specifically Prop 218. I can look more in terms of bills with if there are caps when it comes to setting garbage rates. I do serve on a legislative committee through a trade association group. I can circle back internally and follow up with you in regards to what you're requesting. Off the top of my head, it doesn't particularly ring a bell,
Okay.
but I can look into it for you.
All right. Yeah. I was just wondering because it's sort of like a public, it's like electricity or something. It's such a commonly needed public service. So I thought there might be, but I don't know if maybe I cannot talk tonight. I don't know what it is. I've been talking too much. I work at a school. I talk to kids all day. Town Attorney Piorota, are you familiar with anything like that?
Thank you, Mayor. No, none at this moment in time.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
Obviously, legislation we're monitoring.
All right, thank you. All right, so do we have any public comments at this time?
Sorry, Mayor, this is a public hearing item, so if you want to open the public.
Oh, yes, yes, and that's why I'm wondering if there anyone who has any comments. Please step to the podium, please.
President here and law. I'm just a resident here. And I remember. Thank you. Okay. Did I sing? I remember a couple of years ago, called to somebody's attention, 27 homes in town that were not paying any refuse bills and were not having their garbage picked up, and we don't know what they were doing with the garbage.
Excuse me, could you move the mic a little closer to your face there? Yeah.
I'll try. I have a small voice anyway.
It happens to all of us.
Anyway, I was saying 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years, since we kind of tried to clean up the people that were not actually having Mill Valley Refuse pick up the garbage. And that seemed to be offensive to the town for some reason. And so suddenly everybody had to make sure that they had their contract with Mill Valley Refuse all worked out. My next door neighbor and I at the time, we both were, just single people living in one home. I mean, our own home. And the cost of that seemed to be very high when you consider that we have like 5 or 10 pounds of garbage in a big garbage can. So it's like, okay, I'm really going to have to pay $70 for that. It's like, so we felt a bit misused because of that. And now I see them trying to do a rate increase on top of that. So just coming from my own soul, it didn't seem justifiable to me. So that's why I'm here. Now, I have some other neighbors that could not be here tonight. And they have some complaints, but they didn't want to be here to do them. But I said I would relay the message. One message was that the truck drivers, who maybe they're union or not, I don't know about that, but there's this Willow Avenue right here. And they seem to be driving at like 40 miles an hour and coming in at 6 a.m. instead of the legal 7 a.m. And so it's like upsetting some of my neighbors. And it seems like if we're going to have to pay more, we should be getting first-class service. On one other issue, I remember right after I was forced to, not share a garbage can, I did call the Mill Valley Refuse Company and asked if they had a senior discount. And they said, no, we don't. They didn't want to give any break at all for it.
Thank you, sir. That was your 3 minutes.
Anyway, so I just found out by researching on the web that there is a senior plan that we just have to get documents for. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other speakers in the house? Okay, we do.
Okay. Hi, my name is Morgana. I'm new to Corte Madera. Used to live in San Francisco, but I moved to Corte Madera from Mill Valley to Corte Madera because I really want to, even though I go to San Francisco every day. So what I found here is sometimes the drivers miss pickup. It happened to me. I have to call them up so they can come back and pick up garbage. Another thing is we pay much more than San Francisco, even though San Francisco has much more problem than we have with homelessness, dirty streets, all kind of things. Another thing that I think here, their website is horrible. It's not friendly. They need, since they are asking for more money, Okay, so can you start with the basic? Yes, we have increase in all kind of things, but the basic thing, provide a better website so we can go there and we can find our bills and invoice without need to call them up and waiting for them to please pick up the phone, and sometimes being mistreated. Okay, and they know me there because I'm sorry, pain in the ass, forgive my French here, because I know my rights, I know my rights. And a lot of about customer service for your business is horrible because I work with customer service and I know how, it's pretty much like I feel like a begging so it can serve us. Maybe you don't see
Ma'am,
that, but I see that.
Ma'am, please direct your comments to the council, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. And what I'm looking for is for this meeting here that I came here is just like not just accountability, but it's transparency because I'm seeing they're asking for more. Okay, so show the whole numbers so we can see it, bring it to the table so we can negotiate it, not just coming here for 2.2. Last year was another amount. And then next year, we don't even know because we still going to go through this bidding. I don't know how is the town is working with looking for other options. What I'm feeling here is just like we can give you more. I'm willing to, but what can we get more? I'm asking not just for affordability, but also accountability and transparency, and we're not having that, not this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience? Anyone online?
Yes, we have a hand raised from Roy Wolford.
All right.
Good evening. I want to compliment the Refuge Service, Mill Valley Refuge Service, for being very responsive, particularly at the beginning of this year. So on Thursday, which was the first of the year, we have Friday pickups in Mariner Cove in the garbage. And Thursday, we had one of the floods, and people who put their garbage cans out early had their garbage cans floating down the street. So I was chasing them down the street, trying to get them to dry land. I asked my wife, Arlene, I said, would you please call the Mill Valley Refuge Service and ask them to get here tomorrow real early because we're going to have another flood. And sure enough, that wasn't the high point. Saturday was the high point. But I just want to make it clear, we've had good response and communications from the people in the office, and the pickup fellows are really terrific. They've got a good sense of humor. They say hello when I'm out in front early in the morning. So my compliments to the Refuge Service. That's it.
Thank you. Do we have any other hands raised?
No other hands raised from online attendees, and no emailed public comments were received after the publication of the agenda, only the few that were received prior.
Okay. All right, then. I will bring it back to council for any other comments.
I just have one quick question, either Adam or Rebecca, just to clarify. Under their agreement, they're legally entitled to the increase, correct?
Unless Adam has an answer off the top of her head. I'm looking for the terminology. I believe it's they're allowed a fair rate of return.
Okay.
Not entitled to any specific increase. It has to be a fair rate of return.
Okay, which it would appear that this is, right?
Jean, do you have a response to that? What the term fair rate of return
Yes, definitely.
means?
We
Okay.
agree that it's a fair rate of return.
Okay, thanks.
CPI.
All right. Councilman Beckman.
Thank you. Want to thank Mill Valley Refuge for engaging in this process in good faith. And I think when we see a proposed rate increase come forward that's below CPI, I think what that says to me is that folks are working in good faith, right? We are looking at what the actual costs are, and sometimes they're above CPI, sometimes they're below CPI. So I just want to thank you guys for that. Everybody here knows I have never been shy about pushing back on proposed rate increases over the last 8 years that strike me as off the mark. And so I have no problem approving this, and I just wanted to say thanks.
Councilman Andrews.
I just want to say as a many-year customer of guys, I've always gotten excellent service. My only complaint is I usually remember to call you at about 3:30 in the afternoon. And you shut down at 3 because you start at what, 6:37 in the morning? So anyway, and then one concern I have is you're showing a projected deficit for next year. How long can you do that before you start having real problems?
With the projected deficit, it's important to keep in mind that that's what it shows without any sort of rate increase. So obviously not particularly long that we could sustain something like that. The reason we put in the effort to put together this rate application is because we want to be transparent about our projections and where our cost drivers are, just so that from my perspective, it's better to be upfront about these are the main cost drivers of our business, and it forces us operationally to mitigate that and minimize that. So back to your question, it's not a sustainable long-term strategy, obviously.
All right. I guess the only comment I would make is that I think that Mill Valley Refuse has been a good service that from most people that I feel that, I'm not hearing a lot of problems, but I think it's always good to hear the feedback. And I have a good sense that you will take that into consideration and look into each and every one of them.
Absolutely. With the individuals that spoke, I will talk to, if you guys are open to it, I'm more than happy to engage in a conversation, and we'll resolve it with the service issues aside. Any sort of critical feedback, from my perspective, it's an opportunity for us to get better and to learn and improve. And I really value listening to my customers' feedback, and we can find ways that I will make this right.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt Resolution 13-2026 as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Hold on a second. I see Lorena.
Sorry, I was just asking our attorney if we needed to close a public hearing. I think we just need us to officially close it out.
Oh, okay. All right.
The public hearing is closed.
So public hearing is, a public comment is now closed.
Do you
Okay.
need me to remake my motion, or are we good?
I got it. And then who seconded? Was it?
Me.
Eli,
Okay. I'll call the names of those present in the room for all votes moving forward. Councilmember Andrews,
yes.
Councilmember Beckman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right. And now we move on to item 6A. That is TAM Measure AA, consideration and possible action to approve the amended Measure AA expenditure plan as adopted by the Transportation Authority of Marin Board on March 26, 2026. And I believe we have first to tee up is Town Manager Adam Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas and council members. Tonight we're talking about Measure AA, and just for background, this is the 0.5 sales tax, 0.5% sales tax that's levied throughout Marin that was passed by voters in 2018. There was an original expenditure plan tied to Measure AA at the time, and every 6 years, the expenditure plan gets a review, and that's really what we're here to talk about this evening. And so I think it's a good opportunity to just bring this into remind the public of this measure and what the funds are being used for and how those funds might change a little bit going forward. But a couple of main takeaways for me as town manager and here specifically at Corte Madera, and then I'll hand it over to Derek McGill, who I want to thank for being here. He's the director of planning for TAM, Transportation Authority of Marin. But the measure, generates approximately $35 million a year in revenue. About 95% of the expenditures are really not changing as part of this plan going forward. Vast majority of the measure continues to go to local transit. That's approximately 55% of all of the funds. It's been reviewed over the last 18 months through a pretty extensive public review process, engaging stakeholders. I'm sure Derek will talk about this, but I just want to emphasize it as well through conversations and committee meetings with many stakeholders, culminating as through the TAM board approval on March 26th of this expenditure plan. One thing to note for Corte Madera, it would reduce the amount of dedicated local funds coming to Corte Madera by approximately $50,000 a year. This is indicated in the fiscal impact of the staff report. Some of that money, this is actually proportionally in line with decreases throughout the county. It's not just a Corte Madera specific decrease. But shifting some of these funds into this new category, reimagined roadways, which is really trying to align funding with some of the countywide transportation planning work that was done previously and trying to approve really key corridors throughout the county that could use some, or heavily trafficked, multi-jurisdictional roadways that could use some improvements. And so I think even though there's a decrease in local funding, I think a lot of our residents will likely benefit from improvements made there as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Derek. And sorry if I covered too much, but you can run through quickly the things that I already covered. But thanks, Derek, for being here, and it's all you. So
thank you, Adam, and thank you, council members, for the opportunity to present tonight. We are seeking approval to amendments to our Measure AA expenditure plan. This is Marin's half-cent transportation sales tax, which was approved by voters in 2018. I'll do a quick introduction of the agency and then talk about the amendments to the expenditure plan under consideration. Next slide, please. So who are we? We are the Congestion Management Agency, which is a state designation, but we're also the Sales Tax Authority and Vehicle Registration Fee Authority for transportation fees. We're an independent agency with elected officials on our board. We have all 5 supervisors and then a representative from each council member from each incorporated city and town. We have requisite advisory committees, such as our Community Oversight Committee, as well as our BPAC, our Bike and Ped Advisory Committee. And there's more council members and commissioners on our board than there are staff at only 14 staff. It's important to note that we are not a transit operator. We don't actually provide any direct transit services, nor we're a department of any city or county. We don't own any roadway networks, and we don't own any land or any other assets. So therefore, partnering with cities and towns such as the town of Corte Madera is critical for how we do our work. Next slide, please. And our work is really centered on delivering the commitments of Measure AA. When this was re-upped back in 2018, it garnered a 77% approval rating from voters, one of the highest of these types of transportation sales taxes in the state. And we take that support very seriously. The approval is not, at the time, was not just the sales tax rate, but the general categories of spending outlined in the expenditure plan. As Adam mentioned, 55% go to local transit. We have 26.5 going towards local transportation infrastructure improvements. And then safe routes to schools and school transportation, and 7% going to highways and interchanges. So it is a 30-year measure. It will continue until 2049. Next slide, please. We're very fortunate to have this funding. In California, we're known as what's called a self-help county due to the passage of these funds. We are helping ourselves help the transportation system. It provides support for local and countywide priorities, but along with Measure B, it provides the critical local funds to leverage regional, state, and federal funds. Typical for TAM, the org chart here, or the pie chart here shows our annual budget. And local funds are about half of our revenues, and the other half come from those outside funding sources. And we are very thankful for those outside regional, state, and federal funds. As a result of TAM's role with funding and coordination of transportation projects, we work with a lot of partners. We work with other transit agencies, the cities and towns, community groups, schools, and the feedback we hear is that local flexible funding is important for the work they do as well as the work we do, and supports a variety of these programs and projects, from bus services to sidewalks to crossing guards that are important for our county. Next slide, please. So that brings us to today's topic, the 6-year review process. In 2018, the expenditure plan that was approved included a provision to review the measure every 6 years and consider amendments to keep pace with the changing world of transportation. And this is really a unique opportunity to reflect and adjust if needed. It's been about 6 years since the measure went into effect, and therefore we started this process last year in 2024, about a year and a half ago, to conduct the review. We have centered this review on input from our board, the public, partners, and fund recipients on what's working, what could be improved, and what unmet needs there are. The review included analysis of how this aligns with our countywide transportation plan, financial projections, how much funding was expected at the time in 2018, and how much is expected now, 6 years in, travel and demographic trends, as well as forecasts of what we can expect in the future. And all of that information has been presented to our board last fall. Overall, this is really a good governance review, making sure that our successes and opportunities of the measure and the account for the many changes that have occurred and are still playing out from many of the events of the last few years. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to run through the timeline. It's been an 18-month process. We've been working through this. We released a draft of the draft amendments to the expenditure plan in January, and that was approved by our board in March. And now we're in a phase where we're going out to all the cities and towns for approval of the, and then the expenditure plan, once approved, would go into effect July 1st in the new fiscal year. Next slide, please. I do want to spend a moment on the public outreach. We did 4 pop-up events in summer of 2025, North, South, Central, and West Marin, to get a flavor of the different areas of the county, and included information about the review, and then asked folks to actually identify their priorities through a dot exercise. This summary report was also presented to our board. We've also centered the review on dialogue with our partners and advisory group, the Community Oversight Committee, our Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, our Technical Advisory Working Group, our Equity Working Group, Marin Public Works Association. We have a lot of groups we meet with, Marin Managers Association as well, and then our transit agency partners. And we've also had a board ad hoc guiding this process, in addition to all the board updates we've been providing throughout this process. Our formal comment period, which was required by the expenditure plan, ran from January 29th to March 9th, and we received about 300 public comments during that period. The vast majority of them were from supporters of a new crossing out on Chileno Valley Road. We did get some opposition as well, but vastly outnumbered by the supporters of that project, but also Marin Transit, Marin County Office of Education, Town of Ross, and others. And then there's been additional public comments throughout this process at our TAM board meetings in February and March. And we're here today to also hear input from all of you and any public as well about this review process. So next slide, please. The proposed Measure AA changes, amendments, they're really limited and strategic, as Adam mentioned. There's no changes presented to about 95% of the plan, so I'm not really going to focus on the 95% tonight, really just the 5% that is proposed to change. And I'm going to summarize them here, and then we'll talk in detail about them. We're suggesting a transition of funding from TAM's local interchange program to support TAM's crossing guard program. We're transitioning 4% of the funding from local transportation infrastructure funds that grow up by formula to local jurisdictions to address major capital roadway projects. And that is by the request of multiple public works directors in the county. And then there's minor changes to the eligible recipients in the Sea Level Rise program and the ferry and regional transit access category, and then changes to our community oversight committee structure and the review timeline to align with our other funding source, Measure B, our vehicle registration fee. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with crossing guards, as this is near and dear to a lot of our hearts. But we have, in order to respond to increased cost pressure, TAM is proposing to increase funding for the crossing guard program to help us maintain 96 crossing guards in the field for the next deployment of crossing guards. Currently, the program exceeds the annual revenue collected and requires the use of carryover funding to sustain the program as it's currently structured. The TAM board has instituted a number of expense reduction measures and approved one-time only funds to help maintain the number of guards in the field. And this 0.5% will allow us to keep 96 guards. But without this amendment, 5 additional crossing guards would either need to be removed from the field or alternative revenue strategy would need to be found for those 5 guards. There's not a lot of grant funds available for operational programs such as these, but we continue to look for outside funding sources where they're feasible and align with program rules. Next slide, please. Early in the review process, when we asked what challenges and opportunities there were, we heard from our public works and from our board that there's a need for funding for larger capital projects, namely multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency, and multimodal projects that cannot be addressed through local formula funding or local funding sources. Currently, TAM has no funding that addresses these major roadway projects. In response, the amended expenditure plan proposes to shift 4% of the local formula fund to this new category called Reimagine Roadways, and it intends to get these larger capital projects shovel ready in the next few years. Additionally, this category incorporates 0.5% from the innovation program, which is currently a standalone program, and that will allow us to embed technology improvements into these larger capital projects. This category will provide an opportunity to advance our countywide transportation plan adopted in 2024, and the map shows where we have designated priorities in that plan on our local roadways. Next slide, please. A little bit of background. This is not our first foray into large major road projects. Our previous expenditure plan and sales tax Measure A actually had a formula that split the local transportation infrastructure. 13.25 went to formula funds directly to cities, and 13.25 was held back for these major road projects. That allowed us to work with our public works directors to prioritize and identify major road improvements in the county. The program delivered 8 projects, and 1 project still outstanding and awaiting project delivery up in Novato. Next slide, please. When Measure AA was approved by the voters in 2018, the local road formula funding went up from 13.25 to 22%, but that came at the expense of TAM funding support for these larger capital projects. The same year in 2018, SB1 and state gas tax funds were also secured. These state funds, which were nominal at the time, now dwarf our local revenue source for local roadway repair. Due to the size and the state funds in comparison to Measure AA and the flexibility provided by Measure AA to fund local road repair and projects, the proposed changes are expected to have minimal impact on pavement conditions in the county. It's also worth noting that Marin County and our jurisdictions have the highest PCI of all the North Bay counties, a testament to the good works of the city councils and our public works departments. Next slide, please. We have heard a lot of pushback and a lot of concerns about the loss of local funding. And so one thing that we are recommending outside of the amendment to the expenditure plan process is what we're calling a double allocation. The funding shift from 2.1 to 2.4 does result in reduced funds being made available on an ongoing basis to local jurisdictions. For many jurisdictions, this could be offset by local grants for key transportation priorities. But to further support this transition, this double allocation process is expected to occur next fiscal year. What this really is a shift in our accounting procedures that will be codified through our strategic plan. And basically what happens is we currently fund local roadway improvements through through funding in arrears. So we actually collect the funds over the course of the year and then distribute them the following year. We are recommending that we will shift next year to not only release the funds that we've already collected this fiscal year, but to allow for expense reimbursement for funds moving forward. That will basically result in a double allocation for next year. So while next year's funding would be reduced, this provides significant transition cushion in addition to any local grants that the city may receive. Additionally, due to significant public input, we are recommending another change to Category 2.1 that clarifies that roadway components of eligible environmental protections are eligible uses of the funds. Next slide, please. So in addition to the funding shifts we talked about, this is sort of the additional changes that are proposed. We plan on aligning the review cycles of both of our local revenue sources, Measure AA and Measure B, to have a more comprehensive look at our local funding and where it's going, and then align the timeline for that review to be basically in next 6 years, and then follow an 8-year cycle until Measure AA finishes out. The amended plan also makes language changes to align the Community Oversight Committee in the 2 measures, and then eligible recipient changes to TAM Sea Level Rise program, and changes to the Ferry and Regional Transit Access Program to broaden eligible recipients and include all rail and ferry stations in Marin County. Next slide, please. So in order to amend the expenditure plan, the TAM board was required to approve the amendments, which occurred at its March 26th meeting. The Board of Supervisors then took action earlier this month and approved the plan as well. From there on, we are looking for a majority of the cities and towns representing 50% of the incorporated population to approve the plan. We are well underway with scheduling those meetings, and we expect all of them to occur in April and May. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We are requesting action to approve the amended expenditure plan as approved by the TAM board. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for that presentation. Bringing it to the council, does anyone have any questions? I'll go right ahead.
What's a PCI? I can no longer remember all your acronyms.
I'm sorry, I'm notorious for acronym speak to Pavement Condition Index. So
Okay.
it's a rating of how good the roads
Potholes.
are. Potholes.
That's all?
And the second thing is there a way TAM could every year TAM allocates crossing guards, and every year all the jurisdictions get upset because somebody's losing or gaining crossing guards. Is it possible for TAM to let us know how much an additional crossing guard would cost and allow the towns or other jurisdictions to sit there and say, yes, we'll pick up the tab for this for 1 year and so on?
I can answer that because we've actually had Chris Good and I have had recent conversations with another member of TAM staff regarding that, and I can tell you it's $25,000 for a crossing guard.
25?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any questions? Councilmember Casissa, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I'm also the Vice President of the Board of Marin Transit, so I appreciate the partnership. On the reimagined roads, when I look at the map you have on the slide, it looks like there's some priority roads through Corte Madera, Larkspur. Do you know what streets those are? Or
Sure.
I don't know if Adam, if you would know.
Yeah, I'm happy to explain that map a little bit further. So our countywide transportation plan, it's a rather interesting document. It sets a long-term vision for the county, but it also identifies 15 sort of key strategies that the community and our partners have identified. Among a lot of those strategies are sort of network strategies. So we have a transit priority network. We have a active transportation network identified in that plan. And those are really facility segments that rise up towards countywide significance. So that map is actually showing a number of roadways where those priorities overlap. And in Corte Madera, it's Magnolia, it's Tamalpais, there's Lucky Drive. But there are a number of roadways in town, including San Clemente as well, identified on this map.
Okay.
So, and I do want to note, we haven't determined what roadways are going to be included in this program. We will be going through a exhaustive process to determine what those roadways that would be funded from this program. And we will be working with your public works directors as well as city managers.
Okay, and if it's flagged as a priority 4, I think, does that mean it's a higher priority or does it still needs to be evaluated?
It still needs to be evaluated. We made no decisions about where that funding.
I figured it was worth a shot. And then Adam, on our side, the $53,000 shortfall, do we need to cover that on our budget or how is it being covered or will it be
Well,
covered?
it will, presuming that we are spending all our funds in our capital budget each year through Measure F. I will say we have been a recipient of other TAM grant funds and other funding through to support our capital program and hope to continue to do that as well. But this particular shortfall, yes, it will be need to be covered by one of our other funding sources, likely Measure F funds.
Okay, and then one more, the 474,000 on the double allocation, is that baked into our budget already?
No, it isn't. And I think Chris Good probably has a better understanding of exactly how to take advantage of that. And maybe there's some conversations to be had over the next fiscal year. But as I understand it, it's more of a reimbursement. So we spend down some money on a particular project, and then we can actually request some of that funding back. And so we actually, if we take advantage of that, and at least in the next fiscal year, we actually may have additional funds that we otherwise wouldn't have had in the next fiscal year. And I do have is that only for the next fiscal year?
Yeah, so I do want to clarify here the double allocation process under the current sort of framework this year, 25-26. TAM would distribute 263,000 to the town of Corte Madera. And then we're under the double allocation scenario, we'll be allocating an additional $210,000 worth of spending capacity. So you'll receive 474,000 this next fiscal year in eligible revenues. So the reduction for the town of Corte Madera year over year, and this is not perfect because there is carryover associated with it, is approximately $50,000. I do want to note that the state gas tax and the SB1 funds that you receive from the state are expected to go up $30,000 next year. So there's not a huge, it's not as big of an overcoming next fiscal year, especially with the transition funding, but 4 to 5 years from now, when that transition funding gets spent down, there will need to be sort of discussions about what are the town's priorities, how can we help you go after grants and help fill those, that shortfall that you'll be feeling at that time frame further down the road.
Okay, so it sounds like we're okay in the short term, but we're gonna have to look at the long term. Thank you.
And I have a couple of questions. The coordination of the reimagined roadways that are interjurisdictional, TAM itself will be overseeing that coordination, or how does that all get prioritized?
That's a great question. And you're going to be part of that process as a member of the TAM board over the next couple of months. So the reimagined roadway process will start off with sort of a planning exercise to understand sort of countywide statistics. Let me pull up my notes too. It's really going to be focusing on the first 6 to 9 months on data gathering and establishing that decision-making process. How do we as a county select our highest priorities and what areas are most in need and don't have improvements identified? So there's a little bit of need identification plus what are the opportunities for actual improvement to be identified. So we'll be working with our technical advisory working group, with our public works directors, and then the TAM board on setting up that decision-making in the next 6 months. And then the second phase of that process will really look at the conceptual design and opportunities for improvements and moving those projects from concept into environmental approvals. We have not made a decision about who leads all of the work on this process. It really depends on the nature of those projects. At some point, there's going to need to be a discussion about, does TAM actually lead the project development of these processes, or is it better to, provide funding agreements to the cities for them to lead projects? And so that's kind of the conversation we'll be having over the next 6 months of the TAM board.
Thank you. And my other question is about just how crossing guards TAM finances them, but it's through a private contractor that takes care of the hiring, the benefits, the payment, and all of that of the crossing guards. Is that correct?
Correct. We have a contractor that actually provides the guards in the field and manages the deployment of those, including supervisors and payroll and all the accounting and very expensive insurance policies that program requires.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else from the council? So then we'll move on to public comment on this item. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? No. Anyone online?
No emailed public comment for this item, and none of our Zoom attendees have their hands raised.
All right, then. So we will bring it back to the council for comments and possibly a motion. Okay, quiet tonight.
Sorry. Again, I appreciate the presentation. You did a really good job. It seems like the plan that you've worked out is pretty much fair and equitable, and it crosses multiple areas. So I'm all in favor of supporting. So I can make the motion to approve the amended measure AA expenditure plan as adopted by TAM based on TAM board on March 26th, 2026.
And I forgot to say, public comment is closed. Okay.
I don't have to repeat, right?
You don't have to. That's new. We just
Thank you. And then Councilmember Andrews seconded. So I will call the vote. Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Lovely. All right, then. So we now move on to item 6B, presentation and acceptance of the town annual independent audit report for fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. And for that, we will have Finance Director Chris Petlock presenting. Thank you.
He's joining us.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. We finally completed the 24-25 town audit. It is significantly late. We usually like to be done somewhere in December, but as you know, I kind of joined pretty late. And then I myself really struggled to kind of get the books reconciled with significant help from the auditors and outside help. We are finally here, and I will have Andrew, our auditor, kind of speak through the audit and present it to council, and he'll be able to go through the details with you and answer all of your questions. And of course, I'm here to help as well.
Thank you. And
good. Good evening, town council. I'm here I'm able to share. So I'm here to present the town's financial statement audit and report, annual financial report as of June 30th, 2025. Kind of a couple things we'll go through. Just the scope of work, are kind of some required communication with those charged with governance. In this case, that would be the town council. Over a little quick overview, kind of high level overview of the financial statements, some financial indicators and key pension and OPEB information, and then the audit results. So scope of work. So for the town of Corte Madera's annual financial report, we do the financial statement audit, and we also assist in the preparation of the financial statements. So some required communications. So as part of an audit, there's going to be as we engage, we sign an engagement letter that kind of sets forth the requirements, responsibilities of both the auditor and the auditee, and the auditee in this case would be the town. So there would be management's responsibilities as well as the auditor's responsibilities. And here, now we're going to go through some of those responsibilities. So management's responsible for the financial statements, to present the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, to adopt sound accounting policies, to establish and maintain internal controls over financial reporting and compliance, to provide evidence supporting the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. Management's also responsible for the fair presentation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error. And management's responsible to prevent and detect fraud. As the auditors, we're responsible to perform the audit in conformity with the auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the standards applicable to financial audits contained in government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. We're responsible to communicate with those charged with governance. We do that in the form of this communication, as well as a letter that is issued as part of the after the audit is completed. We also will assess the audit risk of internal control or financial reporting. We'll determine the fairness of the presentation of those financial statements, and at the end, we'll render an opinion on those financial statements. And if there's any recommendations to management, we will issue a letter on any kind of internal control, as you noted, as well as any other communication. So significant accounting policies. If you really want to look into the town's annual financial report, one of the best notes to look at is going to be your note 1. That's going to be your significant summary of significant accounting policies. This will kind of go through all the assumptions and everything and estimates and kind of accounting methods and policies that are used to prepare the financial statements and to account for different items in those financial statements. One of the items that we do include is going to be any new implementations of new GASB statements. There was an implementation of 2 GASB statements, 101 and 102. 102 didn't have any material effect. It didn't have a significant effect. But 101, compensated absences. This new standard really, it kind of looked at before people were charging like accruing compensated absences, say accrued leave based on what you would pay out, like if they were to leave the company. But now it's kind of more more likely than not to be used. So you need to look at usage patterns, payoff histories, and different things like that. So that's a new piece today this year. So that is one item that's actually added to our significant estimates this year is going to be compensated absences for that more likely than not calculation. Some other estimates that are significant include the fair value on investments, the depreciation on capital assets. This is going to be the useful life of capital assets, like how long an asset's going to be useful for, and this will determine the period that's depreciated over. And then also the net pension liability and net OPEB benefit liability. Both of those have estimates that are typically more determined by, say, the board of the pension or actuaries kind of when they come in. So there's less city control over the estimates related to those items, but there are a little bit more control over the depreciation as well as comp abs. So to discuss some sensitive disclosures, obviously we talked about note 1, the summary of significant accounting policies. Note 10 and 11 will typically always be on here because they're large balances for your pension and OPEB. Note 13, that's going to be other required disclosures. That's going to be any kind of excess expenditures over appropriations in the fund or any deficit fund or fund balance or net position. Note 16 is going to be commitments to contingencies. That kind of goes into any construction contractual commitments, and then any kind of like potential legal contingencies for in different areas. So that's what that note's about. Note 17, a restatement of beginning balances. We'll note that there was a restatement of beginning balances due to the implementation of GASB 101. And then some misstatements. There was an uncorrected misstatement reported. And within the management rep letter, we did provide that uncorrected misstatement of the financial statements and obviously was not material, but management also has determined that the effects are immaterial, both individually and in the aggregate to the financial statements taken as a whole. Some other communications include consultation with other accountants. So management's informed us that, and to our knowledge, there were no consultations with other accountants regarding auditing and other matters. We encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management, and we did not have any disagreements with management in terms of accounting treatments or audit procedures performed. So kind of to go over the overview of the financial statements. So overall, for the town, between the governmental activities and business type activities, the total assets of the entity increased approximately $20 million to $175 million. So this kind of has a big part of that, I believe, is going to be there was this large increases in CIP kind of projects that were being added to CIP, as well as there was the new certificates of participation for the sanitation district, and that would have increased both assets and then also liabilities. So you'll note that in the current year, the deferred outflows of resources decreased approximately $5.5 million. These relate specifically to kind of pension and OPEB information. So those are the way that works is to make it so there's not such significant effects anytime there's a change in experience, say, or a change in assumption. They will amortize that over the life of the service life expected, which is typically 3.5 to 5. But any changes in investments between projected and actual is 5 years, so they kind of smooth it out. So you'll see that both the deferred outflows and the deferred inflows decreased kind of, so that typically we'll see those kind of move in a similar fashion. So there is not a significant effect between the change in either deferred outflow or deferred inflow. So you'll see the deferred inflows decreased also, so that kind of nets out. The liabilities, you'll note that the liability increased approximately $8 million, and that is the largest part of that's going to be the certificates of participation. And then the net investment in capital asset portion of net position increased about $9 million, and this is primarily due to obviously a new CIP. So net investment in capital assets will be capital assets related to any debt, also any depreciation. So this is related to additional funding in different CIP projects at both the city as well as the sanitation district. So restricted net position, that's going to be net position that is restricted via a law, council, a grant, like agreement. So those would be the restrictions. So that does change slightly, around 500,000 to 6.8 million. So the overall net position of the town decreased slightly to 5.9 million from 6.4 million in the prior year. So to go into the expenses here, so you'll note in 2025, I think there's a little flip in the formula there. 2025, the expenses did increase slightly. So you'll note that in the expenses amount here that when we go into the next part, when we talk about the general fund, you'll see it specifically like these are like budgeted dollars and dollars spent, but some of the expenses here will specifically relate to kind of pension or OPEB items. So it's not like one for one. So it's a little harder to see, but there was a slight increase in the expenses. So program revenues, these are revenues that can be directly attributable to specific expenses typically. And typically the reason you look at those is because the city has a little bit more ability to kind of like adjust the program revenue bound amount, because either you can increase, say, fees for charges or services, or you can apply for more grants. So you have a bit more say as opposed to the general revenue taxes. So program revenues did increase about $2 million. So you'll note that there was operating grant increases as well as the increases in charges for services from year to year. So you'll note net cost of services was a little bit less. So that was 24 million. So that's typically your program revenues and your expenses. So program revenues are typically directly attributable to expenses. So those would be your kind of net cost of services between those two. So then you would add onto that your general revenues, which would be your taxes. You'll note that there was about an $800,000 increase there. And then some general revenue other. Typically, this is going to be related to any miscellaneous revenue or any kind of investment income. So that you did note an increase here. So you will note that there was an increase in the overall net position of the town of about $9 million. So going forward, sorry. To the general fund here. So we'll note that the assets of the general fund decreased slightly. There was a very not a very large change, but it's still around $41 million. The liabilities did decrease to $2.1 million. So this is by like the accounts payable balance with timing of kind of payments versus invoicing, especially on those CIP projects. Sometimes that could be larger amounts. Deferred inflows of resources at your general fund is going to be related to the long-term, the loans receivable, lease receivable. And so that was a slight change there. That's at least a significant part of deferred inflows. So fund balance, the non-spendable fund balance is going to be any kind of prepaids and inventories decreased slightly to 51,000. Restricted fund balance increased slightly to 5.4 million, 4.5 million. And then your committed fund balance, so this is going to be kind of the sales tax override, the sales tax override kind of contingency, and then also the stabilization reserve. So this decreased slightly to 5.8 million, about $1.3 million decrease. And assigned fund balance, so that's going to be fund balance that's assigned by a person, the person that the kind of appointed for that by the town council, and typically that's going to be the city manager. So that increased slightly to 4.4 million. So you'll note the unassigned fund balance of the town did increase to 12.4 million, about $2.5 million increase on the unassigned balance. So you'll note that revenues saw a slight increase to 36.4 million, the $1.8 million increase. Then the expenditures, you'll note that there was a decrease in the expenditures in the general fund of about 2.7 million to 34.8 million. So overall, you'll note that from year to year, there was a kind of a $4.6 million shift of the revenue over expenditures. And then there was no new SABITA subscription agreements that would require any other financing sources. So that was not applicable this year. So you'll note there was a decrease there. So overall change in that position of the general fund was 1.6, like 1.7 million about. So some financial indicators and key pension and OPEB information. Here we'll like to go over the available fund balance to annual expenditures in the general fund. So this will be your unassigned fund balance with your committed for stabilization balance from your commitments. So that's your stabilization reserve. And then you take that against your annual expenditures. GFOA typically recommends kind of a rainy day fund. It's what this is of about 3 months, which I believe is about 20%, or no, I think it's about 20 to 25%, and you guys are currently at about 45%. And you increase from the prior year, which is so looking good in the rainy day fund area. We always talk about the CalPERS pension plans and the sensitivity analysis. So this would be kind of to look at what would happen if the rate of return decreased 1% or increased 1%. Obviously, if it increased, the pension liability would go down. And then if it decreased, the pension liability would go up. Typically, that's going to be controlled by the state, CalPERS. So, but typically, it seems like in the past they've been going down and not up. So that's just one way to take that. You'll note that your funding ratio, so that means total fiduciary net plan assets compared to the net pension liabilities, about 93%, which is pretty good funding wise, I'd say, compared to other organizations. So let's go to the OPEB plan. So your net OPEB liabilities of $1.1 million. That I will note in the same analysis we just did, but with the discount rate as well as the healthcare trend rate. So if the discount rate goes down to 5.2%, you'll note the liability goes up, and the opposite if the discount rate goes up. But you'll note an inverse relationship, because if healthcare costs go up, liability goes up. Healthcare costs go down, liability goes down. And you'll also note that the fiduciary year of funding is at a pretty good point there. So audit results. So on our opinion, we issued unmodified opinion on all opinion units. So this states that financial statements are fairly presented on all material specs. Accounting policies have been consistently applied. Estimates used are reasonable, and the disclosures are properly reflected in the financial statements. Some other results, where there was no disagreements with management noted. We did note there was a significant deficiency noted in internal controller financial reporting related to specifically, I think during the transition period, the reconciliation of the bank reconciliation process. It seemed like it took a little bit longer to get timely reconciliations of those bank reconciliations, and then there was an uncorrected misstatement on part of the cash related to like a reconciling that wasn't able to be determined, but was not material, as well as there were I want to say significant, but there was a few material year-end close adjustments that we were required to make during the audit to be able to issue the report. So those only reached that significant deficiency level. There were not material weaknesses, though. We had noted no accounting issues, and there was no inappropriate activities noted during the audit. That's the presentation. Here to
Thank
answer
you
any
very
questions.
much. All right, thank you. Do we have any questions from council members? Of course,
No,
Fred.
I don't have a question, just a request. On the weaknesses and the deficiencies, it mentions that there's a letter that was sent, I guess, to staff.
We just it's still in draft form, and we're working with they will have it like this week. We did just issue the financial statements like at the end of last week, so we really didn't have enough time to kind of put all our stuff together. But that will be coming in the next couple of days to Chris.
When we get that letter, can you send it to us, please? Thanks. That was it.
All right, Council Member Andrews.
I guess our pension plan is adequately funded for now. OPED looks okay. And then we're past the transition period going from the old treasurer to the new treasurer. So hopefully next year we can get this report sooner than 9 months late.
Yes, Councilman Andrews. Again, when I came here, as the letter will show, the bank reconciliations hadn't been done for more than 6 months. I started here in May, really kind of started getting to them, in June and July. So we were way behind on getting the accounts reconciled. And of course, the clock was already running with the auditor, so we were into them. Just cards are on the table, so that's what we did.
Thank you. Any public, I'm sorry, did you have? Okay, all right. Any public comment in the House? Seeing none in the House, anyone online?
None from our online attendees and none via email.
All right, thank you. And so we'll bring it back to council for final comment and just to say whether we are accepting the report, right? So the motion. So no more comments from, all right.
Now, seeing as it's an unmodified opinion, I would move that we accept the town annual independent audit report for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2025.
I'll second.
Councilmember Andrews?
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa?
Yes.
Mayor Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, then. So now we move to council reports. Oh, I'm sorry, you had a question? Oh, because the auditors, well, I'll come back. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do council reports, starting with the town manager.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple reports for you tonight, and some of these are for the public, and I just want to get some public information out there that we have been sort of hit, or our customers have been hit by a phishing scheme that is going around multiple jurisdictions in Marin, but also this is larger than Marin. It's sort of statewide and nationwide, where some scammers are essentially taking town public information from town agendas, our logos, our invoices, and sort of crafting fake messages to community members and trying to get them to rapidly essentially pay for something or click on a link. And so I just we put some information up on our website so that I hope individuals can go to and just make sure they're aware that this is happening, so that they can protect themselves and make sure that they're actually getting communications from the town. And one of the things we've gone to is make sure that any email communication is coming from cortemadera.gov. We specifically went to that domain name because it's not easy for hackers and others to sort of get into that and use that as a phishing scheme. So wanted to make that public announcement. Additionally, I know we heard from some residents at the last town council meeting about concerns regarding traffic and safety on Tamalpais Drive. Just wanted to give the council an update that I did meet with a couple members or a couple individuals, residents who live on Tamalpais. There's a larger group, sort of Tamalpais and Chapman neighborhood, who are really concerned about speed of vehicles going eastbound on Tamalpais coming down the hill, and then you have the crosswalk on Pixley. Well, it's actually not on Pixley, it's on Chapman going over to the park. And so Director Good and I have talked about really taking some data measurements of speed going down the hill. And potentially, if that leads to an installation, it may lead to an installation of a radar sign or some indication of how fast people are going. So when you're going down the hill, you may see the speed and that may slow you down. I've talked to also the school district regarding crossing guards. I think in particular, one of the things that we noted, and we had an accident, but right when that time changes from the daylight savings time, the sun, as it's rising, will hit you right around school hours. And so some public education around that, perhaps next year, we'll remember to sort of put that out. People slow down, especially if you're traveling on these east-westbound streets. But a school crossing guard is something that we could consider. And additionally, I've talked to CMPA and Chief Norton and made sure that traffic enforcement in Corte Madera is focused on these areas, so that we look at the speeds of individuals going on Tamalpais, both east and westbound, but particularly on that intersection. And so I've seen some more presence over there from our traffic patrol. In addition, I think this is just going to be, I've made myself available and Chris available to just continue to look at, I think their specific request right now is for a traffic light. I think that's a much more aggressive and potentially has other consequences and expense as well. So it's not something that the staff really thinks is a viable solution there at this point in time, but nonetheless, something I just want to let the council know we're continuing to work with residents there. We'll continue to do so and see what options are available to improve safety as I think it's a valid concern. There's been many accidents as well. People backing out of garages, it can be hard to see as well line of sight. So, beyond that, I think there was, do want to let the public and council know that we have put out to bid the construction contract or construction bids have been advertised, I should say, with a closing date of May 7th for the intergenerational center. And that was after the last council meeting. There was a meeting, I believe, and so maybe council member Casisa can give a little update on the value engineering piece or some of the efforts to reduce some of the costs or find alternatives. But that's exciting news that process now has started with some minor revisions to the specifications. And then with Menke Park, we've hit a couple of challenges at the beginning. I'll just name them. Nothing's to be we haven't determined how this is going to impact the project yet, but just the first week there's some challenges. There was a nesting bird in one of the palm trees on Menke Park that now we have to have a buffer around until the birds actually leave the nest. So that is one aspect of the project that was unanticipated. Secondly, there's some structural conditions with the gazebo that we're going to have to work through and making sure that that's a structurally sound structure before roofing. The project called for re-roofing it, but before the roofing can be done, we really need to take a look at that structure. And then we did also get and I think the council was also emailed about a magnolia tree that was a dedication to a former staff member of the town and potentially saving that. And so we're working with the family members there to try to see if we can't find an alternative way of certainly keep the plaque and the dedication, whether it's with that particular magnolia tree or moving it, or which I think is also a costly option. Better option is maybe replanting it, or there was already a magnolia tree actually planted or proposed to be new and planted in large in the plan, and could rededicate that tree for this former staff member. Again, just that's nothing's been decided, but those are ongoing conversations we're having. So and then today the website was launched. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at it. Hopefully a little bit easier, I think a little bit bolder. One of the key things was, I think Sanitary District 2 is now much easier to navigate to. And so that's front and center now, which was sort of buried under departments before, but a lot of effort went into just trying to get people where they need to go easier, and the new bold color, I don't know what we call it, but it's sort of an orangish color. But thanks again to Lorena and Michael Moriarty on this. I think it's great. So, and there was one of our free design changes that we get with our current contract. So it's also a plus. That's all I have to report right now. So.
Thank you. Which council member would like to go first? Well, I don't have, I can only look to my left or my right. I'm sorry, I don't have any other place. So you want to go first? Okay.
I only have a few. On April 14th, we had a Central Marin Sanitation Agency board meeting. The big thing to report out of that is that the board voted to change the methodology that we use to allocate how much each of the member agencies pays in their annual service fees to Central Marin Sanitation Agency. We switched from a system that allocated costs based on both the amount of wastewater you're sending in and essentially how dirty that wastewater is, to a system that only looks at how much wastewater you're sending in. The reason this makes more sense is for all intents and purposes, all three member agencies have pretty much the same dirtiness of wastewater, so to speak. So it was kind of a meaningless metric to begin with. And B, there had been a lot of quibbling in recent months over like where these, sort of dirtiness, or strength is the term, where these strength of wastewater measurements should or shouldn't be taken from. And it was just, it was becoming a source of just friction and inefficiency at the agency. And again, given that there's no substantive difference in the wastewater that any of us are sending in, it didn't make any sense to keep that outdated system. We're also in better compliance with our permits now. So there were honestly a litany of reasons why this was the right move. The upside for Sanitary District 2 is that our annual fees are going to decrease pretty substantially. So that's a good thing for our ratepayers, above and beyond it just being the right policy decision. April 16th, I had a Cal Cities North Bay Division meeting, not too much to report from that. And then also April 16th, we had an MCE board meeting, and I don't have too much to report from that tonight either. Thank you.
Councilman Andrews. Report. All right.
Now it's my turn.
Now I can look to you.
As Adam mentioned, our 4-9 Intergenerational Center, the ad hoc / design committee met. Rosin went through some potential changes we can do. So when we submitted the bid, there's for some of the flooring, there's 2 different choices. She thinks we may have gotten the cost down again, depending on how it bids out and what contractors come back with, about 10 to 15% plus or minus. But again, it's going to depend on what they come back with. On 4/7/4/15, I was downstairs with age-friendly Corte Madera. We were stuffing invitations for, and I can't say that word, for the celebration of those residents that are over the age of 90. So that was kind of fun. On 4/16, I attended Marin Wildfire Prevention Agency meeting there. We did get a draft of the JPA-wide proposals. Those should be finalized at our next meeting. And the big one, which I'm going to spend a couple minutes on, is last night we had an RV Paramedic Authority meeting. A couple things there, just give a little bit of background. Sorry if I'm talking fast. About a year and a half ago, RVPA did a deployment study. That study looked at different aspects of RVPA. There's numerous suggestions that came out of their recommendations. 2 of them were that the JPA should be updated, and the other one had to do with funding. Again, a bit of background. Right now, Medic 18 is run out of Ross. That's under the county. That feeds into RVPA as far as from a financial standpoint. Medic 14 is run by Central Marin Fire. Those funds, including paramedic tax in Corte Madera, as well as ambulance fees, all fund into Central Marin Fire. So those do not go into RVPA. One of the suggestions from the study was all funding should go up to RVPA. So what happened last night is we got an updated JPA, and that's when it was approved. So one of the things is in the JPA that the funding will go up to RVPA. This won't happen until 27. Because what's going to have the tax measure for the paramedics tax is going to have to go on the ballot in November, and it won't take effect until I think July 1st of 27. A couple of things with that tax measure is that for a long time, Corte Madera has been lagging. There's 8 jurisdictions that RVPA makes up. We've been lagging with the other jurisdictions. We're about $30 less on the paramedics tax than the other jurisdictions are. So to kind of put it in perspective, what was approved last night from the tax schedule, and again, this will go to a ballot measure to the voters in November, is that everybody else would get $3 increases, which pretty much covers CPI to a certain degree. Ours, the first year, would be $7.50, and after that, it goes up to $7.75 for the next 3 years. That'll make up almost the whole $30. So at the end of 31, we'd be up to, I think, $118 or so in tax. Kind of the timing of this is, I think at our next meeting in May, I think we're going to get the JPA, which again, there's an attachment there that shows the rate schedule. And then RVPA is still kind of working on the timing. Adam, correct me if it's wrong. It's my understanding it has to come back to us sometime in September for us to approve the ballot measure, the verbiage and all that, and then we go to the voters in November.
Yeah, I think, and thank you. That was a great report. But I also think the timing of it is still to be worked out a little bit. I think some of the jurisdictions are trying to go in June to get the ballot measure approved in order to actually, because they may go dark in July or in August. We would probably need to, and I know we did this, I was talking to Lorena earlier today. I think last 4 years ago, we went with ballot language at the same time. I believe it was ballot language at the same time to put the measure on the ballot. At the same time, we called for an election in November for council seats, but we don't have to follow the same process. I think it would be best. We'll just figure it out, the best way to handle it. It's a little bit more complicated this time because we have the JPA agreement that needs to be approved by each of the member jurisdictions, our council, and but necessarily as part of that, we're going to be talking about the tax rate because it's an attachment to it. So nonetheless, more to come. The next meeting in May, I will say Ruben is away during that week, but we may take it at the May 19th meeting.
Okay.
I think it's
And
more
it-
likely.
And one other, couple other pieces of this is one thing, Adam and Ruben have done a lot of work on this, going back with Chief Weber and also their consultant. There's a lot of back and forth. We did request that they do a labor study because it appears that Central Marin Fire's labor is a lot cheaper than Medic 14, is a lot cheaper than Medic 18. So I think they pretty much have somewhat agreed to do that study. And the tax measure does say it's up to on these various years. So if it did come back that for whatever reason, there's labor savings costs, RVPA could sit there and set a lower tax rate potentially if they wanted to. There's a lot more there's a lot of moving pieces. And again, I talk fast. I was trying to get it all out. And that was it.
Well, as we all know, JPAs are very complicated. So I'm sure we'll get a lot more on that. I have only one very happy thing to report is that on the 16th, I attended the Marin Regional Fire Academy pinning ceremony. 22 new fighter paramedics, including 2 that are joining us right here, Fabian Vasquez and Drew Bornhoft. So it was a lovely ceremony, really beautiful, beautiful families, and made me feel very proud. And now we move on to discussion of the draft agenda for upcoming council meetings. Does anyone have anything they would like to make sure is on the agenda for the May 5th?
It's looking very light at this point, just to,
Yeah, it looks pretty light. Mhm. Yeah, it looks like the RPA is going to move up. All right, then. So with that, with nothing added there, I call this meeting adjourned. All right. Now we open up the Sanitary District 2 meeting. Call it to order. And can we have a roll call, please?
Board Member Andrews,
Present?
Board Member Beckman.
Here.
Board Member Ravazio is absent from this meeting. Vice President Casissa,
Here.
President Thomas.
Here. All right, then we have no presentations this evening, so we'll jump right into the consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to group together items that are routine or have been discussed previously and do not require further discussion. They will be approved in a single motion. Any member of the public may comment on the consent calendar, and anyone of the public or of the board may remove any item for discussion. Do we have anything that anyone would like to, on the council would like to move or discuss?
I don't want to move. Can I just ask a quick question on 4A?
Sure.
On 4A, there's no material. It looks like there was some kind of just a clerical error. There's no impact on anybody, right? The town, ratepayers, there's no impact, right?
No, it's correct. Correct.
All right, thanks.
All right, then may I have a motion to approve, public comment on the consent calendar?
Doesn't look like we have any public comment from our online attendees.
Okay, so then may we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Board Member Andrews,
Yes.
Board Member Beckman.
Yes.
Vice President Casissa,
Yes.
President Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right, thank you. We'll move right then into the business items. Presentation and acceptance of the Sanitary District Number 2 Annual Independent Audit Report for fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. And I believe we have Chris Petlock presenting.
Board President, sorry, Thomas, if I may. Doesn't look like Andrew got back on, so I don't know if you want to contact him, and then we maybe, if you'd like, we change the order while he gets back into the meeting.
Okay. All right, then. We'll do that. So we'll move on to item B, consideration and possible action to adopt resolution. Oh,
That's Chris.
we're good. Oh, okay.
Chris.
Resolution 3, 2026, authorizing formation of a consolidation committee in coordination with Marin County LAFCO for purposes of expanding a current agency or forming a new Central Marin wastewater district. And presenting will be Chris Good.
Thank you, President Thomas and District Board. Apologize I can't be there in person. I'm homesick right now, so trying not to spread the plague. So yeah, I'll be reporting on this resolution to form a consolidation committee. Just to kind of give some background, there are three members of the 1979 Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement, which created the Central Marin Sanitation Agency. And they run and maintain the sewer treatment facility that treats the sewer for Corte Madera and Sanitary District 2. And these members include us, Sanitary District Number 2, Ross Valley Sanitation District, and San Rafael Sanitation District. So recently, the CMSA board approved an operations and management services agreement between San Rafael Sanitation District and CMSA. And while this agreement isn't consolidation, it's kind of a step in that direction. And so there's been renewed talks of studying consolidation of the three sewer collection districts and CMSA. So just looking to the past, consolidation's been studied at least 4 different times since the JPA was formed in 1979. And then it's been discussed a handful of other times as well. However, it's never proceeded beyond planning phase due to disagreements between, the various districts. The main difference between this consolidation effort and previous efforts is that this time around, the three JPA members are working together to study consolidation with Marin LAFCO as the intermediary, whereas in the past it was always either CMSA or one district leading the study, on their own. So with this in mind, we're hoping that it'll be more of a cooperative process and have better success than the previous efforts. So just going over some of the potential benefits of consolidation, there can be reduced administrative costs, improved efficiency, enhanced services, better coordination of resources, and lower rates for ratepayers potentially. And so these are all things that the study will look to find out. The resolution that's attached to the staff report is to form a consolidation committee, which will be made up of one board member from each district. The committee will meet as needed to receive updates in the study at milestones and provide feedback throughout the process. Staff from the three districts will coordinate with Marin LAFCO to hire a consultant to carry out the study. And this study will plan to evaluate what form of service combination is feasible and efficient, what would be a reasonable schedule for consolidation, options for governance and organization structure, financial impacts of consolidation, and also evaluate labor and employment issues. So ST2 staff support studying consolidation. However, the study will need to show that this consolidation effort will maintain or improve sewer collection service for our ratepayers, maintain or improve district efficiency, not increase rates, and then be beneficial to ST2 employees, as well as provide a clear path forward for how staff from the various agencies will be integrated into a new consolidated Central Marin wastewater district. This is particularly important for us because our public works staff work both on town items and sanitary, so it's a little more convoluted, like how that separation would be formed. So definitely want to understand that process better. And so if, the study will look into all these and once we have a better idea, we can either, recommend or not recommend to move forward with consolidation to the board. And the final product of this study, if successful, would be a resolution proposing a detailed plan of reorganization to which the 3 special districts in CMSA can agree. So moving into the fiscal impact, SD2 is going to be responsible for paying for a share of the consolidation study. Based off preliminary talks, it sounds like potentially would be 20%, which would be 30 to 40,000. The one thing I didn't include in the staff report, but I wanted to point out is that Marin LAFCO would also be looking for the 3 districts to reimburse their staff costs, to manage the consultant, as well as, host consolidation committee meetings. So, we would come back to the board once we have a final cost sharing agreement with Marin LAFCO, just kind of laying out those terms. And so just to summarize, the recommended action is for the board to approve the resolution and select a board member to be on this consolidation committee. So now, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I believe Jason Freed from LAFCO is maybe here as well and can answer your questions if he's present online.
And if I may, Mayor Thomas, I'd also just like to add one thing that I added to the resolution, the draft resolution, was just I think it's important that the board recognizes, and I think Councilmember Katsisa mentioned this with respect to RVPA and going through this process with RVPA. It can be a lot of work for staff to sort of, especially when you're getting into labor and employment, financial operations. These are things that haven't really been explored. And if you are going to actually get into the weeds of how you might consolidate, it takes a lot of energy, time, effort, a lot of requests for information from these consultants. So I think it's important that the board really requests that this is done at a pace that doesn't impact. I mean, this is our finance director's time. This is our Public Works and Sanitary 2 District manager and Public Works director time. Fernando Stefanik, myself, it gets involved at the highest level. So I just think it's important to state that in the resolution from the board, that everybody recognizes that maybe impacts us more than others. We have Ross Valley as a sanitary district. That's all they do. Same with Centerville Sanitary District. I mean, it's a little different. They just did consolidate, but we have one staff doing all of this, and we're a small organization. So wanted to just note that before handing it back to the board. But thanks, Chris, for the good presentation and for powering through what sounds like a really nasty one. So.
Thank you. All right, then. We will bring this to the board for questions. It looks like Councilman Andrews is ready to go.
Does anyone have a sense of the actual physical condition of the condition of each of the infrastructure of each of these agencies, and is one much better, one much worse?
I'll let Chris go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can really speak for ourselves. I mean, we recently finished the sewer master plan, which, went into detail on documenting all of our, pipes, pump stations, and force mains. So we have a really good idea of the current conditions. And I believe the other districts are kind of held under the same standards. So they should also have a pretty good idea of that. And that would all, be brought up during the study.
You have any other questions?
The other is how are you defining ensure fair treatment of employees of all agencies? Does that just mean you take the highest salary from each agency and do it that way?
No, again, these are yet to be defined. I think this seems to be more of an exploratory attempt to try to see if this works. All those questions, those are sticky questions. I mean, those are the ones that will have to be addressed through this study and analysis. And certainly there's employment is a major one that will have to be considered and addressed. It takes time to, I don't think anybody's thinking this is like a really takes time to do this and do it thoroughly and correctly. And so I think my understanding is that this is just really a willingness to give this a shot to try to get to a point where there's agreement around these particular issues.
As I recall, this issue's been raised by LAFCO several times over the decades. Do we know why it never took off initially?
I don't know. Maybe
well, as I'm not sure specifically with LAFCO, Jason can answer that, but I attached to the staff report, there was a memo that CMSA created that basically kind of went through the various studies in the past and kind of what the result was and why they didn't really proceed. So I mean, the general consensus was that like one district or another didn't agree with the results of the study, and so there was just no progress beyond that.
Does the representative from LAFCO have anything to add to that?
Sure, thank you. Jason Freed, the executive officer for Marin LAFCO. I would say the attempts before were before my time with Marin LAFCO, so I can only speak to the history I've learned from others. And I think Chris did hit it on the head a little bit there with there's just been, as they've done the study, there's been disagreements over how to consolidate. I don't believe that the process has ever really had LAFCO take a firm lead as we are going to be taking this time, where in the past you've had disagreements occur and then there's no one there to try and mediate the disagreements. I always like to say when I start a process, I tell people, don't tell me no, tell me why. And the why can help us figure out how to resolve those problems. And that's going to be the approach I'm going to take with the group is don't tell me no, tell me why there's a problem, what issue needs to be resolved, and we can do it. And, Marin LAFCO has had recent success. The Southern Marin Fire and Mill Valley Fire consolidation was something, not as complex as this one will be, but dealt with multiple staff contracts, dealt with how do you take resources and combine them together into one system to make it work. And so we have recent success on that. Hopefully we can take that success from that project and move it on to this project. This will be a 2 or 3 year project. This is not something that's going to be resolved quickly or easily. There's going to be a lot of questions, and I fully respect your city manager's opinion of, hey, we've got a lot of other projects. We're a small staff. Well, we're even smaller, and we're willing to help try and take this on. So hopefully you will agree and do so. I will add, as a separate note, San Rafael Sanitary District met earlier today and approved a similar resolution to what you have in front of you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from board?
No, the question I had was about the timing, but what you're saying, it sounds like it's a 2 to 3 year process.
Easily.
Our VPA was just much more condensed because of the timing of the ballot measure.
Yes.
So, thanks.
Yeah, we will not be rushing anything that we're doing here. It'll have to be 100% correct to get it done.
So, okay. So my question is a 2 to 3 year process, and what was the budget again? It was 150,000?
Yeah, it's a bit up in the air, but our initial estimate I put in the staff report was 150 to 200,000.
And that is for the consultant to do the work. There might be some additional work that's done beyond that over that window.
Right. Yeah, because that seems kind of optimistic, so to speak. Okay, so if we have no other questions from the council, I'd like to open it up for public comment. Do we have anyone from the the public would like to speak on this matter?
Yes, we have a hand raised from Roy Wolford, and he also submitted his comment via email, like at 6 p.m. this evening.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening. I submitted a document via email to the board and the staff about specific analysis of the downsides and the risk embedded in the actual resolution 032026 language. This goes deeper than generic consolidation concerns and focuses on what the structure, omissions, and directives in this resolution could unintentionally create for the sanitary district, the town, and the ratepayers. I request the vote on this resolution be postponed until all the issues are reviewed and addressed. So top level takeaways, the resolution creates a process that appears neutral, but its structure contains several embedded risks: workload diversion, loss of negotiating leverage, premature political commitment, exposure to inherent liabilities, and a governance structure that could sideline Corte Madera interests. Okay, I'm going to come up with 10 high-level items, and there's a lot of detail below that. I don't have the time to go into it. So number one, staff workload diversion and operation risk does not actually protect SD2. SD2 has a small staff that was already mentioned and can be easily consumed in hundreds of hours of staff work even before formal LAFCO review. The SD2 staff may be forced to choose between operational reliability and consolidation analysis. Number two, the resolution commits SD2 to a process without defining success criteria. Three, the consolidation committee structure weakens SD2's influence. Four, no requirements for independent financial analysis. Five, labor and employment evaluation without guardrails. The language implicitly prioritizes labor protection over taxpayer protection. Six, stakeholder list omit key entities, public works, flood control, fire, and ratepayer advisory groups. Sewer operations in Corte Madera are deeply intertwined with flood risk. The omission also biases the process toward administrative consolidation, not operational resilience. Seven, the resolution assumes consolidation is the goal. There's no action conclusion that allows for, or there's no conclusion for no action conclusions, partial consolidation, shared services only, withdraw due to unacceptable implicit conclusions, and this creates process bias. Eight, no public engagement requirement. Nine, no protection for SD climate adaptation priorities. 10, LAFCO engagement without preconditions, and LAFCO can be slow, expensive, and
Thank you.
procedurally rigid.
Thank you, Roy. I do believe we all received your email, and we will definitely go over it. It's quite involved and detailed, and we appreciate your work on this.
We don't have any other hands raised for this item, and we didn't receive any additional emailed public comment for this item.
Okay. All right, then. So public comment is closed. And we come back for council comments and further action. So, gentlemen, any of you have something else to say? Board member Beckman. We go from board member to council to board member.
Thank you. I think this is an exciting and sensible step for us to take. I think Corte Madera has always been a leader on shared services and consolidations in Marin County, including in instances when people told us that lives were literally at stake. This is obviously not that. I'm talking, of course, about the consolidation of our police services and our fire services. I think that as Chris laid out, there's two goals here, right? Two goals that we're hoping to achieve and two goals that we're interested in investigating whether we can achieve, and that's better service and lower costs. It's absolutely true. ST2 is unique among these other member agencies of CMSA because our staff also work on town projects. So, we'll have to study that issue thoroughly and make sure, again, that if there is a proposal, that it's a good deal for the town. And just like we did when we were considering our vote on the Central Marin Sanitation Agency Sanderfell Sanitary District sort of soft consolidation agreement, if it's not a good agreement for Corte Madera, we'll vote no. So I have every confidence in our ability to study these issues thoroughly and then to make a sound decision at the Corte Madera Council or the ST2 board on whether we feel it's good for our ratepayers or not. Certainly by all means, we'll do this at a pace that works for our staff and that makes sure that we're not taking away from staff's ability and bandwidth to deliver projects for SD2 ratepayers, because that's always got to come first. That's our top priority. Last thing I want to say is just to Jim's question about, why hasn't this happened before? I think Jason gave a very good answer. I think the only thing I would add to it is, there's a political element to this, right? I mean, each of these other agencies has an independently elected board, and elected officials like to stay elected officials. I think that is the part of human nature that perpetuates these fiefdoms of little special agencies that we have across Marin County in all of these different areas, right? And we know, right, that it just leads to inefficiency. It leads to wasting of taxpayer dollars. It leads to, worse service than we could otherwise provide. So, I think Corte Madera's got a proud history of standing strong in favor of good governance, standing strong in favor of consolidations where it makes sense. And I'm excited to see where this study leads and where we ultimately land on the question.
Thank you. Board Member Casissa.
Yeah, I'm okay moving this forward also. When I read the resolution, it looks like it says direct staff is to evaluate. So it's not committing us to do anything. It's just, again, evaluating, having them look to see if this is feasible. And I would agree with Eli. To me, when it comes to the end of the day, 3 years from now, if it's not a good deal for SD2, then to me, the board at that time would just decide we're not going to do this because it's not in the best interest of our ratepayers. And I think we have to keep in mind on SD2, ratepayers are not just Corte Madera residents. If I can remember, it extends into Larkspur, the county on the Green Bay Broadwalk, and also into Tiburon. So it's far ranging more than just Corte Madera. I also, I guess, I haven't been involved with some of this. I sit as an alternate to CMSA, so I have been to some of their meetings. But I have a higher confidence level, I think, with LAFCO being involved. I think with you taking the lead, I think that's going to help the process a lot, because at least there's somebody up here that is somewhat independent, mediating and trying to bring the parties together for a common cause. So I think that should help the process a lot. And I also have comfort level when I hear that's a 2 to 3 year process, because again, back to RVPA, that was very consolidated. And I just want to apologize to Chris Padlock, because on RVPA, you were definitely involved in that process also you were doing a lot of the financial work. So credits due where it should be due, but you were doing a lot of the work. So it's not just limited, like Adam was saying before, to him and that's it. It could be Chris Padlock. It's going to be Chris Good. It's going to be Fernanda. It's going to be widespread. And during that process, we can't give up our projects or what we're doing for our ratepayers and have that process stop to go to this process. But I think everybody's aware of that. And I think also, if we don't try it, we don't know if it's going to work or not. So I'm in favor of it. Thanks.
I'm lukewarm in favor of it. My chief concern is if they become a separate agency from the town, do you have scheduling conflicts digging up our roads? Because I know in the past, and this is years ago, not in our town, but in neighboring towns where they redid a street, and then the water district came through and dug things up and put in a new pipe. And one nice thing about having it under the town with Public Works is we know who's going to be doing what, and you can sequence projects well. Okay. And that is the chief practical hesitation I have with sort of consolidating it an outside organization.
I hear what you're saying, Jim. The only thing I would say is, I don't think anybody knows what it's going to look like.
Neither do I. I'm just,
Right. And it could get to that point of time where we just go again, because of what you're saying, we don't want to do this. But again, I think until you go through the process, you don't know.
but I've seen enough projects where it sort of builds up a head of steam and nobody finally says, wait a minute, stop, you know.
Right. Well, the other thing, I would assume that we would be getting updates as that process moves along, correct?
Right, and we would still have an elected representative on the CMSA board. I mean, they would be elected as, to represent a district that, maybe includes more than just Corte Madera, but we would still have our community would have an elected representative on the board. And beyond that, every single one of those board members will be representing a community that doesn't want to see their roads torn up after they're freshly paved. So I think there will be alignment on this board to make sure that there are rigorous processes in place to
hope so.
communicate with cities and prevent that. Yes, I hope so too. Wouldn't be very good politics for those board members if they're neglecting that.
And Jim, if I can remember the paving thing, that was on the east side of Corte Madera with Granada, where the streets got ripped up for the sewer project. And then water department came along like 6 months later saying, oh, we're going to rip them up now. The saving grace with that is that the town, if I can remember, Adam or Chris, saved money because we didn't pay for the full repaving of all those streets. The cost was shared with the water department. So we actually saved some money from that project.
So I think what we want to stay focused on is this, whether or not we're going to approve the funds to do the study. And then hopefully, well, we will demand, I won't be here then, but we will, require that we have updates and that we're seeing how the project goes along. And something that our caller, Roy Wolford, said is, I think is important. What we want to do is not necessarily start with the end in mind. Now, there are projects that you do start that way with, where you go, I want to end up at consolidation, but I want to make sure that this process is about exploring whether consolidation makes sense and how it works for everyone involved if we make that decision. So, that's going to depend on how the consultant is briefed on this and how they are prompted and how they are chosen. So I do hope that we start this with a completely open mind as to where we end up. On that note, I can support the exploration because I think we have to do this. I think there's so many. We have all these small towns. We owe it to ourselves to look at ways we can consolidate and save money these days more than ever before.
So I can make the motion before I do just one last comment. It seems like also if this is a 2 to 3 year study, if it did come out saying consolidation is the way to go, it's probably going to take another couple of years to implement consolidation. So we could be looking at 4 to 5 years plus or minus down the road. So with that, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 03-2026, authorizing formation of a consolidation committee in coordination with LAFCO for purpose of its expanding a current agency or forming a new Central Marin wastewater district.
Second.
Board Member Andrews,
Yeah.
Board Member Beckman,
Yes.
Vice President Casissa.
Yes.
President Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right. Thank you all.
And one question, I don't know if you want to select now who will be on the consolidation committee, or we can do that at a later date.
That is for selecting the consultant going through that process, or to actually be on the committee as it goes through?
Be on the member who'll be on the committee, who will be basically, receiving updates of the study and potentially reporting back to the whole board.
And this is a board member, not a staff member?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Whoa.
We want to wait
That's a
until
surprise.
we have a full.
Yeah, we should wait until.
Yeah, we
Should
should
come
wait
back,
till you-
yeah, to that.
Okay.
Chris, what's the timing on that for selection of a board member? Probably have time, right?
I think we have time. I don't think there's a rush. There won't be a consolidation committee meeting for a while, but yeah, we can schedule that for another board meeting.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I realized my mic wasn't on when I asked the question, but you picked up on it. Thanks.
Yes, well, we'll once we have a full board, we will bring that to the full board meeting. All right,
Great, thanks.
thank you. And Town Manager Wolf, you look like you had something to say.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
We'll come back on the committee question, and I was just thinking through that structure. That's all.
Okay,
Sorry, my mind was
great.
on.
Thank you. All right, then. Well, with that, this matter is ended, and we're going to go back in our agenda to item 6A. Is the representative from Pune here?
I assume there was some miscommunication about the sanitation district following, and I will invite Andrew Roth back to our next meeting.
All right.
Apologize.
So we have an exciting agenda item for the next meeting.
You bet.
So yeah, so we won't be looking at this one this time. Okay. All right.
If that's, yeah.
Vote to have a motion to continue.
May I have a motion to continue item 6A?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Board Member Andrews,
yes.
Board Member Beckman.
Yes.
Vice President Casissa,
Yes.
President Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Right. Thank you. And now we ask for district manager and board member reports. There are any?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just had one or two items to report. I wanted to give an update. There's currently a development on state land that basically passes over where our 54-inch sewer force main runs that basically connects us in Ross Valley to CMSA. And so I kind of came into this conversation late, taking over, earlier this year, but the development is planning to add a bunch of fill on top of our easement and over our force main and actually build structures over a portion that's within a tunnel. And this will basically preclude us from ever replacing the force main in our easement. So, we're running into this issue, and I, along with the general manager of Ross Valley, Steve Moore, are in conversations with the developer and CMSA to try to find alternatives to basically, how we would replace this pipe in the future, because it's a very big deal. The pipe's already more than halfway through its design life. And, we're going to have to look at replacing it in the next 25, 30 years. So, that's kind of a big item we're working on. And then separately, we have a bunch of CIP projects that are wrapping up. We've completed the Paradise Pump Station project, which was a huge effort. Fernando was running that one, and that was like a good success. So that's done. And then our Category 5 Phase 1 and 2 projects are both wrapping up around the same time right now. So we got a lot of CIP projects completing, which is great. That's all for me.
Thank you. Any other board members? And I have nothing. So the final item is upcoming district agendas. Anything? What's that? Financial statements. Yeah, there we go. That's coming up. All right, then. All right. So with that, I think we may adjourn. Thank you.